I'm back. What's up? What's up? So listen, I wanted to get right at you with this second video, right? I didn't want to prolong it too long. Welcome back to the Ballot and the Bullet. The Ballot and the Bullet. Yes, it's a play on Brother Malcolm's Ballot or the Bullet, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So again, for those who are new, I want to welcome you to the station, the Ballot or the Bullet. Please do subscribe, please like, please tell your friends and your family members. We're going to try to drop videos weekly in which we integrate some politics mainly, and then we're also going to talk, we're in this era of self-defense, right? So I want to talk about, you know, if you live in a major city or you live in one of these mid-sized cities, excuse me, we're seeing an uptick, or you might be seeing an uptick in violence. And so we want to be talking about the means by which we need to protect ourselves. And so whether that be, you know, you carrying some OC spray, whether you be taking some mixed martial arts classes, or whether you take that leap, that next step, and you get your concealed carry license and you begin to carry a firearm. And so again, we'll talk politics, but I also want to begin to talk about self-defense. Again, I'm new to the gun community in the last 2 years, so I do want to put that out there. When I'm talking about what I know about guns, it is a collection of what I've learned over the last 2 years from being at the range, from shooting a ton of guns, from talking with folks and just doing research. So I am by no means an expert. I am simply your average guy, right? I'm your average guy. So do your own research, talk to your lawyer, talk to the experts. This politics thing, right, is a thing of life. And so I'm giving you my life experience. In the last video, I said, again, there's the American experience and then there's the black experience in America, right? And that's a real thing. It's not a fake thing, right? When folks say, we don't need black history. Black history is American history. You're right. Black history is American history. But we also need American history, because without it, there would be no black infusion of the important attributes and contributions, excuse me, of African Americans and black folks in American history without Black History Month. That was a long way of saying what? In March, in April, in May, when your children are in their history classes, they are not learning black history, right? When they are talking about the Reconstruction, or when they're talking about the Great New Deal, or they're talking about World War I, World War II, the Industrial Revolution, no matter what they're talking about in U.S. history, it is void of black folks, right? And so it is important that we have black history, and it is important that we espouse and that we continue to say Black lives matter, right? We're not saying that all lives don't matter. That's silly. Stop that. We're not saying all lives don't matter. But what we are saying is that in American history, in the past and in current day, what is true is that black life has not been valued at the same level as white life. That's a fact, right? That's a fact. There are a ton of children that go missing every year. 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, Asian, black, white. But there's an Amber Alert after a white girl that went missing. No disrespect to her or her parents, and I hope that they found the young lady. I'm not sure of the history too much, but what I know is that America cared enough to come up with a law when a white person, a white young lady, young girl went missing. And that's just a minute example. There's many examples in which black life isn't valued, right? We still don't know how Sandra Bland committed suicide, right? You got this young, extremely energetic, sort of activist-minded young lady who, from what I understand, was able and willing to put up a fight in terms of getting her due justice. Why would she commit suicide, right? And so black life didn't matter then. Castillo was in the car with his wife and with his child, right? He told the officer that he had a license to carry. And what happened to him? The officers unloaded their weapons into him, into the car. They didn't care that his wife and child was there. They didn't care that he had the right to carry. And so it is absolutely necessary, right, that we have a black view and black perspective on politics, right? That there is a such thing as being black in America, and then there is, what folks consider to be being American, right? And so for some folks they're the same, for some folks they're different, for some folks it's going to be an ongoing conversation, right? But some folks might be saying, again, the Ballot and the Bullet, that's not a unique channel name. I get it. Slow down, slow your roll. I get that it's not a unique channel name. Your name is probably not unique, right? What's your name? Jennifer, Jason, Kevin, Keisha? None of those are unique. Just joking. But really, right, that's not unique. You can change it. The channel name is not unique, but it is fitting. It is fitting for this day and time, right? We're in February of 2022, right? And the Ballot and the Bullet is still a fitting term, idea to propose, to put out there, and to have on the table, right? This idea that in 1964, Brother Malcolm X coined the term the ballot or the bullet, right? And what he was saying then was, listen, there was so much going on at the time in 1964 to obstruct and restrict voting, particularly for African Americans, black folk in this country. And it was disgusting. They were trying to take away as many ways in terms of disenfranchisement. We're gonna cut that out. Trying many ways to limit how folks had access to the ballot, right? And what Brother Malcolm was saying is, look, we need the ballot or else, right? Or the bullet. And at the time, it sounded provocative, right? This sounded, some folks would say violent in a sense, right? That he was saying, give me the access to the ballot or I'm going to bring my gun to the ballot, right? But let's not forget how America started. Don't be a hypocrite, right? Patrick Henry, right, one of our founding fathers, coined the term, give me liberty or give me death. Give me liberty or give me death, right? He was talking, obviously, to the British. But for him, same concept, right? I want to be free, give me access to freedom, or give me death, right? Bullets, right? And so what Brother Malcolm was saying wasn't unique, right? What folks did at the time was attack his particular vernacular, his particular way of delivering that truth, and said that the ballot or the bullet at the time was controversial, was particularly violent. But so what? Our founding fathers were violent, right? It was a violent birth to this country.
July 4th, right? That is the Independence Day, right? America fought for its independence. It was not a picnic. It was a war, right? Give me liberty or give me death. And so the channel name is what it is, right? Currently in February 2022, what do we have? We have throughout the South, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, we have proposed legislation and legislation on the books that seeks to restrict and take away access to the ballot. They want to purge voter rolls. They want to, in some ways, have redistricting such that the power of the black vote gets limited. All these tactics, right, to maintain power, right, And the reality is, when you look at national statistics, Republicans are a minority in the country at large, right? And so they need to do whatever they need to do in terms of tactics, and they know it. Whatever tactics they need, they will employ because they are a minority in order to maintain and stay in power. That's just a fact, right? It's a smaller and smaller and smaller group of folks. If they were to poll the country and you looked at Republicans, again, national stats have them at around 32%, right? When you look at these ultra Trumpsters, they are at 10 or 15%. That's a strong percentage of the base, strong portion of the electorate in general. But again, that's a couple million people, right? And so still today we have folks trying to restrict access to the polls because of we're in the COVID times, it's epidemic times. We had voting drop boxes, however many per district, per capital of people that lived in the county or in that district. And there was a certain amount in 2020 and in 2021. But now that access, there was too much access, right? Voting was too easy for Americans to vote. And so let's make it a little bit more difficult by now making that senior citizen who was able to go 4 or 5 blocks to drop off their voting ballot, let's now have them go stand in the line for 2 hours, 4 hours, 10 hours to cast a vote. And we know what that means. When you have to stand in line for 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours to cast a vote, it's discouraging, right? It's going to discourage folks from voting. And that's the intent, right? Do your own research. But in the last election in 2020, what it showed was in some major, predominantly black districts in Georgia, what they found was, on average, black folks waited in line 5 to 10 times longer than similar sized counties of only predominantly white folks. That's just the facts. That's not my opinion, right? Go look it up yourself. But why is that? Why are folks having to stand in line longer compared to other Americans if we're the same American and we have access to the same rights? The right to vote, the most basic right. More and more I'm debating on whether, what's more important, right? Should we be protesting more than voting, or should we be voting more than we're protesting? And I think with this corporatocracy, right, with the Republicans and Democrats being, opposite sides of the same coin, right? The coins being, they look different, but it's the same coin, right? The same corporate entity has access, right, to democracy. As long as that is what we're faced with, then democracy is being threatened, right? It's being threatened by those who have a ton, right? That's just what the reality is, right? And so, again, that's the channel name, right? The Ballot and the Bullet. The Ballot and the Bullet, right? We need to be voting, and we need to be protesting, because folks listen more, unfortunately, when you hurt their pockets or you stop them in traffic or they can't get to their Starbucks. They care about that, right? If you say, some injustice happened to my cousin, they don't care. But if they can't get to their Starbucks, all of a sudden, let's make sure that this guy his cousin has justice because I can't get to my Starbucks. That's literally how some of these folks are. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So again, that's the station channel name. That's the channel name. The Ballot and the Bullet, right? We're going to be talking about defense, right? Today at the end of the video, I want you to stick to the end of the video. We're going to be looking at my EDC, the Canik TP9 SC Elite. Did a couple of things to it in terms of modifications. I'm not a big putting money on top of gun money type of person, and we'll talk about that later. I tend to believe that if a gun isn't great out the box, then you shouldn't purchase it, right? And some people, whatever, we'll talk about that later. But that's on the channel name. Let's get right on to, again, one or two other reasons why I started the station. I couldn't get it all in the first video. And so I wanted to just jump into a couple of things real quick, right? And one of the bigger reasons I just needed to jump into this commentary was it's just a lot of nonsense coming from both ends of the political spectrum. A lot of nonsense, right? That we as Americans, that we as the everyday electorate have to tolerate, right? This political injustice, if you will, this stratification, right? The fact that when we look at the U.S. Senate, right, 100 senators, and we look at the fact that something like 96 of them are independently wealthy, right? That they were millionaires prior to getting to the Senate, right? When you look at that there are U.S. reps that have been there for 25 years, and when you look at their net income 25 years ago, and you look at how it has exponentially increased while in office, is nonsense. It's ridiculous. We're forced to deal with so much nonsense in this country from both parties, right? And again, I would argue we need to be leaving the parties and forming a practical party, right? It could be some kind of third party. It could be a progressive party. I think black folk need a black bloc in which we begin to influence politics on our own. You know, I think that needs to start at the state level, right, in terms of reforming politics. But there was a lot of nonsense that takes place, and I'm going to get into some of the nonsense on the Democratic side, because again, I'm not a Democrat, and most of my friends dislike me. That's not true. Most of my friends, yeah, they dislike some of the things that I say about Democrats because they're Democrats and they take it personal. When I ask them, do they disagree with what I say? They dislike the fact that it's true, and they dislike the fact that they don't like that they're beholden to the Democrats, right? That they don't have any option. They feel like if they left the party, then what am I going to do? You know, what power do you have as an independent? And that's a conversation to have, but that's no reason to stay with the party that mistreats you, that doesn't love you, that treats you like a political booty call, right? You know, they call you up every 4 years. Hey, black folk, can I holler? Yeah. You want some money? I can give you, what you want. You want these child tax credits? Okay. You want me to reform the schools? Got you. You want me to? And then we know what happens, right? They don't deliver. That's what happens. Most of the times they don't deliver. So let's just get into some of the nonsense, and I'm going to end with a big piece of nonsense that just sent me over the top with like, okay, jump into this commentary, get a station, and let's see what happens, right? Let's talk about the first thing. We all know that on January 6, 2000, there was a violent insurrection in the Capitol, right? We all know that's what happened. It was a violent insurrection. It wasn't a party. It wasn't a protest, right? And for Republicans to be disingenuous about what actually happened is insane to me. Insane. On the record, on the floor of Congress and in the media, you have Republican representatives and senators saying it wasn't an insurrection, but it was a violent protest. Really? Let's bring up the definition right here of insurrection, right? Let's bring up the definition right here. Insurrection, a violent uprising against an authority or government. A violent uprising against an authority or government. Is that what happened on January 6th?
Are you gonna redefine what an insurrection is? Come on. Come on now. Political revolt, a mutiny, whatever you want to call it, right? And why I would border on the line mutiny, we all know what a mutiny is. Why I would border on the line on the word mutiny is the level of collusion it took in taking and the coordinated effort it took for January 6th to take place. You had those that were committing these violent insurrectionists getting information from somebody on the inside as to what doors, what hallways, what windows to access, right? In terms of the coordination, you had folks in the White House coordinating, leading folks in certain directions, and in some cases not leading, right? We know 45 didn't lead, right, in terms of getting those folks to pull back and to back down. And so that's nonsense. It was an insurrection, right? On the flip side, what is equally as ridiculous is that Democrats have yet to hold anyone substantially accountable in the government, right? Because that low-hanging fruit, the people who were there, those are pawns. Let's be real clear, right? The people who were on the ground actually running up the steps, right? Knocking over police officers, using tear gas, those folks were pawns. What we want to see is some rooks, some of the bishops, right? The king, the queen. We want to see those folks being taken down, right? Folks in the White House who were coordinating this attack, right? Remember, it did start as a rally, but then, what's this gentleman's name? Grinch from New York. Giuliani. You had Giuliani and Trump Jr. You had all these guys up there rallying up this rally, right? They were rallying up this rally. It was already hyped up. They took these hyper whole new level and then just let them off the leash. Just let them off the leash. And what did they do? They went up and attacked the Capitol. Something got to be done, right? Republicans got to stop letting these folks off the hook, and the Democrats have to stop letting these folks off the hook. Right now, the Democrats have majority, right, in the House, tied in the Senate. Do something. Do something. Stop it. Stop it. The other thing real quick, and I know this video is getting long, so I'm going to just get right to the last piece in terms of what Republicans do very, very well is that they take terms, language, ideas, and they simplify them, right? And it doesn't matter whether the ideas are true or not. It doesn't matter whether the ideas are true or not. It doesn't matter how controversial they are. What they want to do is rile up their base so that they can go out to the polls, so that they can attend rallies, so that they can sick them on other groups of people, right? They take these simple ideas and they take them to a whole new level. So they'll take something like the estate tax or the inheritance tax. So what they'll do is they'll take something like the estate tax, the inheritance tax, and then they'll get into a committee room and they say, how do we take it? How do we package it and win on this issue, right? And what comes out of that committee, that brainstorming session, right, is let's call it the death tax, right? Let's call it the death tax, right? Obviously, we know language and media and marketing and anything sort of matters, right? But this framing war is typically won by the Republicans, right? When we talk about same-sex marriage versus gay marriage, right? The conservatives, Republicans wanted to frame that narrative as gay marriage, right? Because they wanted those two words sort of side by side, right? One, gay, meaning one thing to them, that they wanted to sort of put that out, and they wanted to juxtapose that to marriage, right? As opposed to same-sex marriage. Again, they win on these particular issues. Super nonsense, right? But on the part of conservatives and the people on the far right, the far right nationalists, and so many groups that are on that far right, some of them are aligned and some of them are not aligned, right? In some cases, folks would consider Mike Pence to be far right, but when you juxtapose him to someone like Donald Trump, right, and others out there, you just don't know where that spectrum is or where it's going to stop in terms of that conservatism. But most recently, and you're all going to be familiar with this, right? You're all going to be familiar with this. Most recently, at a race car meet, a reporter was interviewing a race car driver, and a chant ensued in the background, right? A chant ensued. I'll put the link in the description so you can hear the actual audio for those of you who haven't heard it. But a chant ensued in the background. It was F Joe Biden. F Joe Biden. You could decipher. You could hear it, right? I'm not sure if the reporter heard it and wanted to cover it up, or because it was loud and muffled and maybe she had on air set. I'm not sure. Maybe she didn't hear it clearly. But the question she asked the race car driver was, why are they chanting, "Let's go Brandon"? So out of this comes this media storm from the conservatives of "Let's go Brandon," right? It is both smart and absolutely stupid, right? That this chant happened. It was misheard, and they took this F Joe Biden, converted it right into "Let's go Brandon." It's on hats, it's on shirts, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's silly, right? It is absolutely silly. But what is it doing? What is it doing? It rallies the base. It's a marketing tool, right? You wear that t-shirt out anywhere, and everyone knows what it means without you having to say anything. And not just know what it means, right? They kind of can assume what kind of person you are, and I hate to judge anyone in that regard. Again, I'm no Joe Biden fan, but we all label each other. Let's just put that out there, right? And so, if you're a conservative, that's one thing, but I think there's a particular group of folks, unfortunately, that believe the F Joe Biden, right? Particularly, well, it's two groups. It's particularly the Trumpsters, right? The Trumpsters absolutely hate Biden. They could initiate something like that in terms of a chant. And then there's the 2A community, right? You know, Biden has said some things that, you know, appear to sound, you know, what they would consider to be anti-gun. And I would say it's either regulatory, in some cases overly regulatory, but I wouldn't consider it anti-gun, right? Them using that rhetoric, once again, anti-gun, riles up the base. He's not anti-gun. That's not true whatsoever. But they use it, right? And so here's where we are, right? Let's go Brandon. Stupid, silly. But I got something for you. I got a shirt coming. I got a shirt coming that is a response to Let's Go Brandon. I got a shirt coming on the next video. On the next video, I got a shirt coming that's a response to Let's Go Brandon. And what I'm gonna do is, yeah, let me just put that out there. I don't want to say too much because I want to get to the conclusion of this second video. But again, the name of the station, not unique by any stretch of the imagination, but contemporarily profound still, right? The Ballot and the Bullet. The Ballot and the Bullet, right? That's where we are today. So again, I want to welcome you to the station. Again, hit subscribe, like, please. That's going to help the channel grow. Tell your friends about it, share it, comment, all that good stuff. Again, my political commentary is based upon my life lived on this earth as a black man. And as I've said in the last video, I'm black first. Thank you for watching this video. See you on the next one. Peace. Beautiful lies. Don't break my heart. Tell me beautiful lies.